Hello YouTube, welcome to another Green Dragons Gaming Club Battle Report. Without us, they never feel like winners. Without them, we couldn't look so good. This is another Pretty Boy Bat Rep, and this is Buckeye Game 2. If you've watched the first video, I suffered a pretty upsetting loss. But it was a lot of fun, interesting game. And now I'm not gonna lie, my psyche's been thrown way off, and now I gotta try to get back into this one. So this is my list. Feel free to pause and take a look at it. And in this game, I am playing Warriors of the Dark Gods. I'm playing James Shaw. And I like his list a lot. He's a traditional Warriors of the Dark Gods player. No muss, no fuss. He doesn't even bring chaff with him. No magic, no shooting. He just wants to get in your face and punch you in the mouth. So this is what the board looks like. You're going to notice there are less pictures in this battle report only because the game is actually pretty quick. And I also was running out of room on my phone, so I had to be somewhat choosy with the pictures I took. But deployment and scenario for this was the diagonal deployment, and it was secondary objective was breakthrough. So going over his army, on the left he has a unit of 15 warriors. They're marked with wrath and they have halberds. Then he's got a chariot. He has two characters on mana cores. His BSB and general on mana cores, which is pretty awesome. So his general on the mana core is next to the hill. Then in the middle he has a huge unit. I think it's 5 crusher knights, and then he's got a character on a crusher in there. Really nasty unit. And then behind the impassable terrain is his BSB on a mana core, another unit of 15 warriors with wrath, halberds, and another chariot. So very symmetrical. He put everything down. He won first turn, so I kind of deployed in reaction. Now you're going to notice on this board we have here, there are 3 pieces of impassable terrain and a building. So it's going to be really difficult for me to actually get any shooting or magic off on those mana cores if he plays it right. And you'll kind of see how the terrain comes into play with that. Going over my deployment on the bottom left, got a unit of Dark Raiders. I have my Knights protecting that flank. I got a unit of Repeater Auxiliaries next to the impassable terrain. Kraken, my Spears, my General and BSB on the altar are in there. Then I've got my Horde of Executioners, which are in the water feature because they don't care. And then on the other side is another unit of Raiders with the Dancers behind them. I'm planning on just trying to race those Dancers into his deployment zone. I'm not even going to stop to pass go. I just need them to get back there and win me the objective. And then I have 2 Repeater Bolt Throwers that I put on the hill. I don't think you can see it in here. Maybe I didn't put them down yet, but this next picture you'll see it. Those are where my Harpies are. I think maybe my Harpies are behind... Oh yeah, my Harpies are in here. You just can't see it because of the altar. They're behind the Executioners a little bit. So anyway, turn 1. This is his movement. Pretty straightforward. He moves everything up. He's going to put his warriors, his 1 chariot, and his general on the mana core behind that building and come around that side, which is smart. The issue is I have basically no room to maneuver things over to help because of the impassable terrain and the building. It creates 2 funnels, which for his chariot and his mana core he can easily fit around. So that's going to cause me havoc. I vanguarded my Raiders to the left out of the picture, which is why you don't see them. And actually, this is a picture of both our turn 1. So he moves forward. And now I'm looking at this, and like I said, my soul was crushed after game 1. And I'm thinking, to have any chance of really getting back into this, I need to start getting 20-0s. I'm looking at the board. He's got turn 1. He's moved up. He's getting in my face. My Bolt Throwers really have no opportunity to shoot his mana cores because he's hid them quite well using the terrain. So for me to just sit back and try to pick at him with like what little shooting I have is not going to do a whole heck of a lot. And I see an opening. I see an opening to throw just a huge right-hand hook and hopefully knock him out quickly. So I take it. I abandon the left side. Let him waste time coming around that building. I don't care. I don't have enough stuff to deal with what he's got over there. I move the Raiders around his warriors over to the left outside the picture. I start moving the knights back around the impassable terrain. They're immune to psych, so I can't leave them over there. I got to start moving them back. And I decide what I'm going to do is I'm going to take those crushers out. He's got no real counter charges. And I think if I can bait him into a charge, I can kill them. So what I do is I use my repeaters as chaff. I move them right up. Those crushers are frenzied. And basically, if he wants to charge the repeaters, I have it so that, when he does his wheel, he'll kill them, but then he's going to overrun and basically hit the building. And he's going to have to stop an inch away. I flank charge with the spears, and that's the end of that unit. Or he has enough room there, you can see that he can charge my spears, which I moved up aggressively head on. Now, he will kick my ass in that combat. I know that. He's going to win that combat, but I should be steadfast. And then after he wins that combat, on my turn, I'll have a counter charge with the Kraken in the front, my knights in the flank, and those two things don't even matter, but I have my executioners over there with Swift Stride, and I can easily charge in the flank with them. So, really, I don't even need the Kraken and the knights to go in. As long as my executioners can get in to the flank, those guys are toast. And then I'll have my units more centralized in the middle of the board. And my executioners are not scared of anything else, so I can just reform them that those warriors have no other option but to charge them. So that was my general thinking is, if I can get that unit quickly, I can take this game pretty easily, and I might not have to actually kill those characters, because I think it's going to be very hard to catch them. And then on the other side, you see I move my raiders around the chariot, and the chariot has nothing to charge now, because my executioners are out of line of sight. So, going to turn 2 to Warriors of Dark Gods. He does something, I guess is both expected and unexpected at the same time. He takes the bait. He kind of looks at it and he's like going, oh man, I have no choice. I guess I'll just charge the spears. I was like, I'll hold. And he runs them in. In terms of his other movement, he moves the chariot back around the building because he knows that there's really not much for it to do over there. He's moving his general around, but he's still using that impassable terrain to hide him, which is good for him because I can't shoot at him, but at the same time, it basically makes him that it's harder for him to get into combat because he's not going to be able to see anything, except those knights at the moment. He's moving his warriors around the building a little bit more. I think he might have failed his march test with them, which is why they couldn't move much. But basically, he's just using those guys kind of like my dancers. He's just trying to get a scoring unit into my deployment zone. Let's see. His BSB is just chilling behind that impassable terrain. And on the other side, he brings his other chariot into the flank of my executioners, just trying to put a little pressure on me. And then this is the rest of his movement. And he marches these warriors up as aggressively as possible to try and chaff my executioners. And now I realize the error of my ways, because we actually tried to do the wheel with the executioners, and by a hair, he actually chaffs them up with those guys. Oh, and I'm just kicking myself because that's something, I came up with this plan, and I could have easily just measured to make sure that they couldn't chaff me up, and either move the executioners, like sidestep them so that they would have enough room, or march the harpies up to kind of like chaff them up and keep him from chaffing me up. There were so many things I could have done, and I just was too impatient with my movement and didn't even bother to take the time to do it. I just took it for granted. So good move on my opponent's part. And now we get into combat. And yeah, he crushes this unit, but I am steadfast, so I hold, which is the plan. However, my spears really didn't do as much as I thought they would, especially since they have lethal strike and rerolling to wound. I think I did like 1 wound, maybe 2. It was pretty bad. But in any case, it comes to my turn, and now I realize I can't charge with executioners into flank, which really screws me over. So, I'm going to just take those warriors, the most expensive piece of chaff I've ever faced. They charge in there. My Dark Raiders on the top right could see the rear of the chariot, so I figured, that might be the easiest way for me to take it out, because I don't trust those bolt throwers to take it out in 1 turn. And then with The other stuff I had going on, so I was thinking, okay, the executioners can't get in, but I have the countercharge with the Kraken and the Knights. I think I'll be okay there. Kraken gets in. The Knights, again, by millimeters, could not get in because the repeaters were in the way, and they just couldn't quite fit. And it was just like another one of those like stupid mistakes that I just failed to measure out properly because I was impatient. And I went through my movement phase and I wasn't as calculating as I should have been. The idea, I think, was good in my mind, but the execution was poor. So then I moved the Harpies up to at least chaff up the chariot, so it's not countercharging anything. And the Knights fail their charge, but his general can't see them because of the impassable terrain, so I'll take that at least. And then my repeaters start marching up, again, just trying to get scoring units near his deployment zone. And I keep moving the dancers up as well, but you can't really see them in this picture. Go into Magic, and I get Corruption of Tin off on these guys, which is great. It's only a -1 to their armor, but that makes a big difference in the grand scheme of things. And then we go into combat, and again, my guys just woefully underperform. I'm hoping I can win this combat now, because he doesn't have a lot of guys left to kill. And the Kraken actually gets 2 wounds through, but on the multi-wounds only does 3, so I only kill 1 guy. I end up losing by, I think, 4, I want to say. And I fail leadership with rerolls and everything, and I break with both units. He does not catch my BSB, but it's going to be his turn next. Meanwhile, my executioners slaughter every single warrior before they even get to strike, which was awesome. And I do a combat pivot because I know I'm going to be in trouble down here. Alright, Warriors turn 3. Game is already bloody. I've already lost way too many points than I'd care to admit. He charges with his general to get my Kraken off the table, and then he charges with the Crushers to get the BSB off the table and redirects into the Bolt Throwers. He had a spawn ambushing, so the spawn finally comes on this turn. The Chariot's going to take out the Harpies. I forgot to mention, but top right, his Chariot actually fled off the board. I won that combat. And yeah, I killed it, which was pretty awesome. So 1 Chariot down. And then his BSB takes the bait and goes into the repeaters, which I was actually hoping he would do because, again, Manicore's frenzied, he has to overrun, and now my executioners should have options, either the Crushers or his BSB, depending on what I want to do, and neither of them can flee. So yeah, so towards the end of his turn, he kills the repeaters, he overruns, he kills the 1 Bolt Thrower, overruns into the next one, but because he has so many guys there still, my executioners can still see his flank. And my executioners can also see the flank of his BSB. So even though the game is clearly not going my way, I have a couple openings now. And I'm calculating the distances, I'm calculating the points, and honestly it's better to go after the Crushers. So my executioners do, they hit them in the flank, I slaughter them, I kill all of them except his hero. He runs off the board, and then I face towards the center like this. Meanwhile, I'm just like trying to move my Knights around to get towards his deployment zone. I keep moving the Dancers. I think they're now like around the impassable piece of terrain to get scoring units over there. He doesn't have much to do in his turn. He's just trying to now trap my units. He's moving this Chariot over here to try to scare my Knights, and he's moving his warriors into my deployment zone. On my turn, I do this shifty move, and I just march them straight up. The Chariot can still see them, but it's a bit of a far charge for it, and his BSB can't see them. So that's nice, and the Dancers are now over there in his deployment zone, so I have 2 scoring units to his 1, and I'm banking that on that hopefully giving me the game. On his turn, his Chariot tries to charge, it fails. He's moving his general and BSB over to desperately try and trap those Knights. There's nothing I can do at the bottom of the board. On my turn, though, I charge with executioners into his Chariot. I kill it, and then I had a moment where I was like, oh, do I face his... I think it was his general. Yeah, do I face his general and try to bait him into charging that unit? And then I'm doing the math in my head and thinking, you know, if I don't kill this thing outright, he's going to win combat, and I could very well break even on steadfast. Which you know I will fail if you saw my last game. So I decided to go with the conservative play. I kill the chariot, I overrun, and they run the few inches they need to get out of line of sight. And then with the impassable terrain, just like he's been doing, I use it to hide my knights. I'm in his deployment zone, you know, and basically I would still have the bottom of the turn to march them because he went first. So basically I position them there. He can't see with either of the mana cores around the impassable terrain. And then on my turn 6, I just have to march them 14 to get in there. And I don't even think it was a 14, but I just have to move them into his deployment zone, and that wins me the objective. So, at the end of all that, because this is the end of the game, the result ended up being a draw. It was, I mean, he was up on points just because he got that huge unit. I had my general, my BSB, and the spears. I was able to catch back up, luckily, because I killed that big unit of crushers with his character in it. And then I got a couple chariots and his big unit of warriors. He was still up on points, 13-7, but with the objective, it ended up being a 10-10. Still not happy with the result, but certainly I'm pretty happy that, you know, being how the beginning of the game went, I was able to salvage something out of this game. As for MVPs, Warriors of Dark Gods, it had to be those crushers. I mean, those things were destroying everything. If they didn't get flank charged, there was really no way of stopping them. And then for me, the Executioners, I think, after last game, were trying to prove themselves again. They picked up a lot of points this game. They picked up the Warriors, they picked up the Crushers, they picked up his character, they killed his chariot. I mean, I think with the exception of one chariot, they basically got all the points I earned in this game. So well done there. So what did we learn today? Oh my gosh, I'm still kicking myself. It's painful to do this video. Patience and attention to detail in the movement phase. I had, I think, a really good plan. You know, and I actually expected my opponent to not take the bait and just kind of sit there, which would have been fine with me also. But I had a really good plan with multiple counter charges, and I just screwed it up because I didn't take the extra 5 minutes to just measure everything out and say, okay, these guys can definitely wheel here and make it in if you do this, and just get that squared away with my opponent, or just at least with myself to measure it out. I just didn't take the extra time because I just made assumptions, which was dumb. The terrain was interesting. A lot of impassable terrain pieces, and then the building, so 4 pieces of terrain that could block line of sight, and it really benefited us both. I think it ended up being a tactical game because of the terrain and how my opponent and I used it. You know, it was beneficial on his part because he could save his characters from being shot and magic to death. But at the same time, it was kind of beneficial to me because even though he was keeping those guys alive, they never made it into combat because I was able to hide my units so easily from them. And then at the end of the game, using that impassable piece of terrain to basically hide my knights so they could be the scoring unit to win the objective, which that was huge. That piece of terrain wasn't there, I would have lost that unit and the game. So that was really interesting. I like how the terrain came into play in this one. Really fun game. I had a great opponent, and we had a good time. But yeah, now if my psyche wasn't shaken before, at this point I'm just gonna go out there and try to have some fun and try different things in my following games because you know, there's no way I'm going to be up at the top tables at this point now. So I was just thinking I'll just relax, have a good time. I'm not going to worry about it too much. And hopefully this will teach me in the future to be a little more patient in my movement phase. But anyway, that's the game, guys. I hope you enjoyed it. This was definitely a little bit of a quicker battle report. Like, subscribe, do all the YouTube stuff. Reach out to me, leave comments. And I appreciate your viewership. So until next time, see ya.